the Small Business Breakthroughs with the Ohio Small Business Development Center. I'm Mike Bowers. I'm the director of the SBDC at Columbus State Community College. And today we are excited to have Kim Knights, the CEO of the Columbus Empowerment Corporation, on. And we'll be talking about a number of small business things that pertain to starting, growing, building businesses, plus some of the interesting work that the Columbus Empowerment Corporation does. Before we get going, I want to bring in our partner for the event, Chaz Frutel, and have Chaz talk to you a little bit about the Dublin Entrepreneurial Center, who we're excited to be working with, and that is where I'm at today. And unlike last week, Chaz, I don't have my guest right across the hall, but we've excited to get going and excited to discuss some of the cool things that are going on with the deck.
Well, thank you, sir. Thank you very much. And we have just been blessed to have Small Business Development Centers as a partner clear back at the DEC's founding in 2009. It's just been a great relationship, and most of those years, you've been an integral part of that. So thank you so much, and for all the team with SBDC and the services that you guys provide here in Central Ohio are just top shelf. So. But the deck's been doing well. I mean, obviously every organization, struggled the last couple of years during COVID, but we didn't really lose too many tenants that wanted to go completely virtual and decided they didn't need a space, anymore. Actually, we've had some boomerangs. We've had some people now that have come back that, went fully virtual at home for a while and then decided, you know what? It's not always easy just doing everything from home with distractions and those kind of things. So they wanted to come back and have a place, but we have spaces available for anybody that might be interested in coming in and seeing what we have to offer, and very affordable. So as little as $95 a month. And City of Dublin's very involved with sponsorships and whatnot. So, so our prices are very reasonable to have an office and those kind of things, but just very excited about what we have to offer. And the folks that we've been able to serve over these many years that we've been in Central Ohio. We've graduated over 180 businesses from the deck. The statistic is still over 90% of those businesses are still active, which blows the national averages away. And so we did something to help them maybe a little bit to be successful, and our partners like SBDC and Rev One and others that are certainly can be on site to help too. I think the team has been very helpful in helping so many businesses get started and grow successfully. So it's a pleasure, and obviously a pleasure to always partner with you guys in these types of events. So thank you for the opportunity to be here once again. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you. Excuse me. So I mean, I think that the great thing about the deck and the things that the deck's done is, again, it's that whole community type of aspect. It's the ability to have support, SBDC, Rev One. You have other partners that are willing to kind of work with small business owners, whether that be in sales or accounting or other types of things. And again, there's a variety of different training opportunities, connection, networking, different things of that nature that you can get at the deck. And I know that we are excited to really start thinking about what 2023 is going to look like in terms of what we're going to be able to do, generally training, outreach, but also the things that we're going to be able to do at the deck. Obviously, we'll continue to do the Small Business Breakthrough program, which I believe its first anniversary is going to be in September. But we are really looking forward to working with the deck and coming up with some other things that we'll be able to do here and continue to provide SBDC advising and other types of opportunities here too. So we're looking forward to that. And if you are interested in connecting with the deck, reach out to Chaz, and he or one of his team will be able to kind of show you around, talk to you about options. And like you said, I mean, there's kind of virtual options, there's hotspot options, there's a variety of different options here. So it's not just, hey, come in and get an office and it's, kind of expensive. It's not. I mean, it's an opportunity for you to kind of, if you want to get out of the house, or if you want to do some things, and like Chad said, kind of reconnect after COVID. I mean, the remote working has been, it's been helpful and been valuable. It's been needed, but also there's some value to getting out. So that's what we're looking forward to. So we're looking forward to that. So with that, I want to kind of move into the session today. For those of you that are joining us today live, don't forget, if you have questions, to go ahead and put those in the chat. Bruce Walters from the SBDC, one of our small business advisors, is here. He'll be monitoring the chat. I'll be monitoring the chat. So if you do have questions, don't hesitate to put those questions in. And we are excited today to have Kim Knights. Kim is the CEO of the Columbus Empowerment Corporation. I have known Kim for a number of years. I'm going to say how many years, because then we'd have to tell them that we started when we were like 10. But Kim's done a lot of work in the community, a lot of work with small businesses, and brings a lot of knowledge. And I think it's really cool, some of the stuff that the Columbus Empowerment Corporation is doing. So we'll talk about that as we kind of move forward. So Kim, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Michael, for having me, for inviting me today. I'm really excited to just share with you some information that hopefully can help our small businesses. And yes, thank you very much. We cannot share how long we've known each other, because right. Yeah, people would think, wow, that was child labor back in that day.
That's right. So why don't we start off, just kind of tell us a little bit about yourself, a little bit about the organization and things you're doing, and I want to get into a little bit more detail later on about the organization, but kind of get it started there, and then we'll kind of move in and talk a little bit about small business.
Okay, so we are Columbus Empowerment, previously known as Columbus Impact. We are a CDC, a Community Development Corporation, a nonprofit agency, been around for a few decades as well. Our focus today is entrepreneurial support and real estate development. So we are part of the Columbus ecosystem as well. We also provide real estate development in the area, as well as consulting. That's pretty much our sweet spot. Within our services that we provide to small businesses, they're focused more on growth stage businesses, but again, I'll get into that later on as we talk about some of the services and also some of the things that we're doing around real estate right now, which is exciting. I'm excited about.
Yeah, no, I think it's pretty cool. Really kind of working with stakeholders and other folks in the communities to kind of continue to build that up, I think is really cool. So let's kind of jump in a little bit. Again, you have a lot of background working with small businesses. We've worked, jointly over the years on different things. I mean, so let's just kind of jump in. I mean, what are some issues that you see small business owners, tend to miss, especially as they're kind of in that early stage? Maybe they're starting, their first 6 months or something like that, or they're starting to grow. What are some things that they tend to, miss as they're moving forward?
Well, I think we've seen it a lot too in the businesses that have started during 2020, but it's always existed that businesses tend to just miss that basic piece and just structuring their business and reaching out to agencies and programs such as the Ohio SBDC and other programs to assist them in that startup phase. A lot of times it's just they don't know about the services, but a lot of times it's just a fear of the unknown and not knowing what those services are, what the cost may be, what the time obligation may be. But I always encourage people, we don't work directly with a lot of small businesses. in that startup phase, only because there's so many of you out there in the ecosystem that do that. So our first referral usually is the Ohio SBDC, your website, if not a direct email introduction to someone for those services. But I think just in that basic structure. And then after you go past that 6 month, I think it's really just planning, the time and the fear of what it takes to plan. When people say a business plan, I think that a lot of businesses think, I just don't have time to do that. And it is time consuming, it takes time. But if you're going to have a successful business, you have to plan. So I would say planning is one of the biggest issues, even if it's not completing a complete or doing a complete business plan, at least sitting down and looking at the different elements. I think it's a lot of food for thought when you look at the outline and then begin to at least address some of those issues. Scalability, planning for growth. After they get past that year one and they're actually producing revenue, a lot of times their reputation begins to precede them and they grow in revenue, but they haven't really built the capacity for that growth. So that is one of the areas that I think I've seen the most. A lot of businesses, they can somehow get past that I didn't plan stage, I didn't write that business plan stage, and I'm actually making money. And then they get into that growth stage and they realize, oh my God, I didn't plan for any of this. And so I don't actually have the resources. I don't have the inventory. I don't have the human resource. I don't have all the things that it takes for them to actually scale up the capacities that they need to scale up.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely right. We talk a lot about, planning and preparation and different things like that. I mean, I always get a little leery about talking about business plans, especially for early stage businesses, because they do exactly like you're talking about. I don't know how to do it, or I'm not able to do it. Or I think in some cases it's even worse. They'll go to the SBA website, download a template and start putting stuff in the template versus really doing the research, really trying to figure out what's going on. And I think that's critical for folks. But you're right. I mean, I think that a lot of times they jump in kind of maybe before they're ready. They kind of learn school of hard knocks, kind of working through there. And I know that's one of the things that we all try to support them on, to help them avoid some of those mistakes. But they need to think about their business more strategically, as opposed to just tactically. And how do I keep the door open and the lights on as we go from there. When you talked about scalability as they grow and different things like that, can you talk a little bit more about that, some of the issues that businesses need to be thinking about as they are growing up, especially around like employee growth and different things like that?
Yes, and I think today's environment couldn't be a better time to really evaluate this, not only for startup or newer businesses, but for existing businesses as well. I think we see things like our supply chain or logistics, or the human resource issue, the labor issue. A lot of businesses are not in a position necessarily to pay what has become a competitive wage in a lot of industries, especially I think about industries like home health care, and there are just so many different industries of transportation where that wage has become really competitive, but they can look at other things that they can provide as benefits other than the wage. Are they providing some sort of comp time, or just various different things that they can look at to provide as benefits that don't really, it costs them money, but it's more cost effective for them than raising the wage, or at least raising the wage to what market rate might be. But yeah, I think logistics and supply chain is a huge issue, and not just supply of materials or supply or human resource. Do you have a team? A lot of businesses are one person. So their supply chain as far as material may be working well now, but do they have the team that can provide the additional services that they need provided? Not just the team, the professional team of an attorney or access to an attorney and an accountant or access to an accountant, but a marketing person, SBDC. SBDC is part of your team. And so it's really just building that team and looking at all of the areas that are involved in you providing whatever service or product that you provide. And do you, have you planned properly to make sure that you have access to what you need as you grow?
Yeah, we talked about team last month with Matt Burns. And, the thing that was interesting there, we talked about the internal team.
Mm-hmm.
So, employees, partners,
Mm-hmm.
things of that nature. But I think a lot of people don't really think of their attorney, their advisors, other folks. I mean, that's part of your team. You've got to be comfortable with them. You've got to trust them. Yeah, maybe you're paying them in some cases. In some cases you're not. But,
Mm-hmm.
it's good to really think about, you've got this team and then you've got this other team that you can go to help you build and grow and have that support, because again, you don't know everything,
Right.
and especially if this is your first time through the process, and there's always something coming up. I mean, the whole situation with the pandemic and everything. I mean, you have businesses that were doing well through 2019 or something like that, and all of a sudden, they were closed, or they weren't able to, open full time, or their labor force was completely changed, and then they needed to kind of think about how to shift,
Right.
how to
Pivot.
potentially pivot, look at their
Mhm.
market, and
Mhm.
really see, okay, this is where I was then, where am I now?
Mm-hmm.
And growing from there. So that's really critical. I think I want to jump into this a little bit later, but I also want to talk to you. What are your thoughts on financing for small businesses? I mean, when, obviously, if you need it, you need it. But I mean, if you're starting a business or you're starting to grow, I mean, my thing has always been, I get people that they get really wrapped up in, I have to have X number of dollars. And again, a lot of them haven't done the plan, so they don't really know how much they need. But what are your thoughts? What do you see? I mean, we've both been around here, looking at ways to finance a business. What are your thoughts then?
That's a great question. So one of the things that we do, and that is a lot of pre and post loan technical assistance, or I should say more specifically, pre and post finance technical assistance. And I think when a person, first of all, when a person is thinking about starting a business, they need to try and save whatever they can save, because they've not started that business. So if you have a regular income coming in, whatever you can pull from that income, begin to pull that. Also begin to identify, if you have suppliers, begin to identify if what type of credit rates they have, or not credit rates, but credit terms that they have. Begin to talk to some of your supply chain, which might actually be consultants or other types of external services, and begin to find out what those costs are like, and find out what types of terms they may have. Save as much as you can before you actually start business. Okay, that being said, let's talk about the businesses that are already in business and they need money. They don't have another source of income, or maybe they do, but they're already in business. That's really a tricky one. We really sit down with that individual, and even without doing a business plan, just try and do an assessment. We do a lot of one-on-one, just like the SBDC, but we just kind of stay in different or more specific markets. We're not as broad, and we're not trying to be as broad as the services that are already out there. So with that finance piece, we really sit down and do an assessment of what that business person's needs are and try and identify how we can best meet that need. It's not always finances. They think it's finances, but it's not always finances. It may just be them talking to a supplier, or them getting different types of invoicing time periods. Sometimes it is finance, but it's also something that's more in depth in their management and the process. So an individual can get the dollars that they need, but if they're not managing those dollars properly, then it doesn't really benefit them. But again, we just sit down with them and do a one-on-one assessment. Of course, we look at all of the funds that are out there, the Kiva fund through SBDC. We work with all the banks, we work with all the community development lenders. So there's funding out there. Of course, there could always be more funding and different types of funding. A lot of funding is not available for small businesses that are not in a great financial position to start with. And that's for various reasons. That being said, those people are still starting business that are not able to get financing. So what do they do if they can't go into a bank and get financing? Or even if they're not in a position to get community development lending, which has much less restrictive requirements than a bank. What do they do then? We really just need to sit down with them and assess what their needs are and try and figure out a plan of action for them to move forward. But again, I cannot stress enough for those who are thinking about starting a business, save whatever you can save towards starting that business. Sit down and speak with someone at the SBDC or one of the other agencies within the ecosystem and try and get an idea of what some of your costs are. You just don't know what you don't know. And so there are so many things. We operate within agencies, but we're businesses as well. We may be a public business or a nonprofit business, but we operate the same. So we have to do the same thing. We don't know everything. We have to reach out to others to assist us in doing the things that we do. And so please just reach out to one of the numerous providers, beginning with right here, SBDC, and sit down and talk with them so that you can begin that planning process.
Yeah, I think a lot of people don't, especially really early on, don't get this concept of bootstrapping. And that's where, you talked about, talk to your suppliers, see what the terms are. There's a value to them of being able to sell that product.
Right.
And even if, that's why they have terms, and if you don't ask, you don't know. And so they want to do business with you. It's not just the other way around. And trying to be creative, trying to, I always tell people too, when we talk about financing, it starts with you. So this concept of savings and keeping your money back, or, friends and family, the family part of that, you got to make sure you're doing what you're supposed to do, or it makes Thanksgiving a little uncomfortable. But this whole concept of really kind of bootstrapping, looking at ways, because it's not always about going to a bank.
Right.
And banks do tend to look for history. Banks do tend to want to lend for stuff. So if you're looking more working capital or different things like that, you've got to think about how you can do these types of things. We did have we've got a partner we've worked with for years, kind of lost contact with them through the pandemic, had another meeting with them the other day. But when I get folks that come to me and hey, I can't get money to start up, I can't get startup. That's what these guys do. They're using an SBA program that will do loans for startups up to 150,000. You go over 150, go 150,001. That's whole changes the whole dynamic of the conversation. But for most businesses, you're okay there. But that program is credit driven. I mean, if you've got to have good credit. If you've got good credit, then you're good to go. They'll work with you. But that gets into this whole planning concept and thinking about what you've got going on. That is really important in the early stages. And again, we talk a lot about that. But it's hard to, especially if somebody, I got this great idea.
Right.
They're going to go forward on it, without maybe doing some of the research or some of the vetting or trying to determine it's a great idea for other people or just for me. And I'm probably not going to be a great market for myself. So, really thinking about those types of things and prepping and getting yourself ready is important.
Yeah, it really is a process, and it's always easier to get money when you have money. So even if you save just a small amount, just for the lender, again, whether it's a bank or a community development organization or some other agency that's providing funding, when they see that you yourself have invested in it, it puts you in a completely different position. And it is hard to curtail that enthusiasm. You don't want to be that person that, burst their bubble, so to speak. But I have had many businesses come back to me and say, when I first sat down and talked with you, I thought, she doesn't know what she's talking about. I'm just going to go out here and just start this business. And then as they got into it, they saw. I always try it. You can never tell someone you can't do that. You just can't. You can't really tell them that, but you can, say, well, you might want to look at this, or you might want to take this into consideration and just look at it different ways. But again, that pre-planning, I cannot stress enough. And for those who you're already in it and you didn't plan, just stop where you're at now. As far as that thought process, I'm into it too far, I can't go back and plan. Stop where you're at now and sit down again and speak with someone at the SBDC or someone that can assist you in your journey. And it's always, when you're looking at, we go back to like that growth, that capacity, that's when you don't need the money. That's when you want to look at what you'll need to go forward and possibly even get a line of credit or whatever. That's where the benefit comes in, and sitting down with the SBDC or an agency like ours or one of the ecosystems and saying, hey, this is where I'm at. This is it. This is the type of growth track that I'm on today. I have the funding. A lot of businesses say, well, I don't need to get a loan because I have the funding. That's when you need to look at getting maybe not a loan, but a line of credit. And for working capital, you do want a line of credit. You don't want a loan. You don't want to have to pay a term on something that you're not necessarily utilizing those dollars. A line of credit is a lot of times, oftentimes for working capital, your best product, your best tool, because you're only paying on what you're utilizing at that time period while you're waiting on those accounts receivables or whatever you're waiting on, and then you're paying that back. So again, it's easier to plan when you don't need it, and it's easier to get it when you don't need it and you already have some money.
So kind of along those same terms, I mean, what have you seen in terms of businesses that have kind of ventured from 2019 through the pandemic to where we are today in 2022? I mean, what have you seen with these businesses and where they are now? I mean, a lot of stuff you just said is probably where they need to be or what they should have been doing, but where do you see, how do you see the environment for them hopefully coming out now?
Well, a lot of businesses, those businesses that survived, a lot of them, whether it was planned or not, they maybe organically took some of the steps that we would like businesses to take in that planning process, just in that mode to survive. So they began to look at really what was taking place within their industry. They began to look at what their competitors were doing. They began to look at things like their supply chain and what could be, who can I get, who else can I get to provide this particular product or service in addition to who I'm already using. So they looked at a lot of those things. A lot of it, again, wasn't purpose planning, it was more organic planning. And they realized that those are things that they need to continue to do. So I think those folks that did that and they saw the benefit of it, they realized that it didn't just help them through the pandemic to survive, but it was something that they needed to do all along. I think they picked that up and they've continued to do that. Those are the ones that we saw when we did, we and you guys and everyone else did different types of sessions on pivoting and strategic planning. They hear that word strategic planning and they don't really, they just think like, what is that? It's not as deep as it may sound, but it is as critical as it sounds. But there are so many simple things that you can do as part of that strategic plan, just like just looking at your market, looking at your industry, looking at the changes that are taking place. So again, those folks who did it organically, they saw it was a benefit and they've continued to do it. For the other folk, I think a lot of times if we just break it off maybe piece by piece, and so for example, a lot of people are experiencing supply chain issues right now. So if we can get them to really assist them to look at their supply chain and other suppliers, potential suppliers that they can have, and also look at what they can do. Maybe they didn't pivot, maybe they've not even thought about a pivot, maybe they didn't add another service or product, or they didn't even think about that. This is a good time for them to look at what is it that you're doing that you can expand, not necessarily pivot and turn away from what you're doing, but expand into an additional market to bring in additional revenue with what you're already, with the costs that you're already expending. So with the supplies that you're already getting, with the services that you already provide, how can you expand that into another revenue stream? Those are things that I think we take it piece by piece for those who didn't really pick it up before. Then they see that, oh yeah, this works, and then can say, okay, as a matter of fact, while you're looking at that, let's take a look at the market that you're serving, so we can figure out what else they can utilize from, X, Y, Z. So hope that makes sense.
No, I think it does. And I think that, the pandemic and the shifts, I mean, it's given us also opportunities that I don't think we had back then. I mean, we used to do all of our training live. We played around with one particular program that we did remotely, and it was a little wonky. It worked, but now we do this all the time. I mean, so we've moved forward. There's some remote options. There's different things you can do. And I would think that it even, depending on the business, obviously, if you're a Main Street business that's primarily focused on selling, right out of where you're at, it's one thing. But I mean, if you've historically been like a Main Street business, you had a brick and mortar, now's a great opportunity to kind of expand that market and grow that market, online sales, online products, and using tools like this, you can reach out to people, all over the place. You don't have to get on a plane and fly to wherever to be able to do this, or drive, and even short distances. I mean, say you're just primarily focused on Columbus, you want to sell in Cleveland. I mean, there's opportunities to kind of do some things with it that weren't there before. You just need to kind of be observant and look for those opportunities.
Right. You're absolutely right. That's how a lot of the businesses, the brick and mortar businesses that did survive, even if their brick and mortar locations didn't survive, the ones who were selling a product, that's how they survived, because they went online. Everyone had to, like, overused term, build the plane while you're flying. Everyone had to do that. We were the same way. We weren't doing, I don't know if we were doing any webinars. We probably a couple times a year did a webinar, but we had a face-to-face group that meets monthly, our Central City Developers Group, which I'll talk about in a second. And I think we were like a couple weeks out from that meeting. Our previous meeting, we had over 50 businesses there. And it was like, oh my God, how do I, like, what do I do so that I can, keep a hold of these folks? Because, attention span, and we were providing a great service and a networking opportunity as well. And so, we had to figure out, what do we do really quick in order to do that? And then we found, just like you guys and everyone else has found, that I am so sorry, I have my windows open. I just realized. And so you're hearing the lawnmower, but I will finish. You know what? I'm going to let you talk for a second, and I'm going to jump off camera, and I'm going to come back and finish that, and I'm going to close my windows right quick.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think that, a lot of things that we've discussed, I think there's opportunities for the businesses to grow and shift. And, I always say too, that when the economy is kind of shaky, when we're not sure what's going on, that's really opportunities for businesses to take advantage of, looking for gaps and looking for openings in the market and different things like that. Typically what I would do is just say, Bruce, you can start talking about small businesses for a while, but I'll go ahead and keep going. So when we think about growing a small business, I think that there are, a variety of opportunities to look to grow not only your business, but grow the community and, support, your community. And I think that that's really a good segue into the Columbus Empowerment Corporation. I mean, Kim, do you want to kind of jump in and talk a little bit about, what you guys are doing and how that is impacting Central Ohio?
Yes, thank you. So our agency, again, we're a community development court, and so our focus is on really being an advocate for the community. In our particular case, more specifically, the business community, but the community at large. And how we've impacted the community at large is through our revitalization, through real estate revitalization. So over the years, we've gone into a lot of areas. I like to say that our previous president and CEO really laid the palette for real estate development in a lot of the areas that are taking place now within the Near East area. We were known for going into the areas, purchasing property in areas that folks were not purchasing property in, but we saw the need, excuse me, to go in to those areas and revitalize and help to increase the values of the properties in that area, not in any way for to cause gentrification, but just to revitalize and to bring more stable real estate into those areas. So we see agencies and corporations and businesses such as Children's Hospital move the boundaries of the construction and development residential that they do as far north as Main Street. That would have been unheard of. That was unheard of 20 some odd years ago. So those are the types of things that we did in the past. What we're focused on now, today, especially after the pandemic, is affordable housing and affordable commercial space. So Columbus, I don't have the stats in front of me right now, but our housing, we have a huge, significant housing deficit in general. and our affordable housing deficit is multiplied exponentially. And so our focus is not on large development, but if we can impact a couple families at a time, that's our goal, to just have an impact to some degree on the community to assist economically. So our affordable housing again is focused on, or our housing again is focused on affordable housing, as well as our commercial real estate is focused on affordable commercial space. And it's not exclusive to the Main Street area. That's just the area that we've been in. One of the things that we've been working on for the last few months, and hopefully we'll be able to see it fulfilled within the next year, is affordable housing for reentry as well, for individuals that are coming out of the system. Again, affordable housing there's a significant lack, and that much more for individuals who have any type of record. And so we want to be able to assist in that way as well. These are things that we do to impact the community. That's our economic development impact directly to the community. Some of these individuals as well are business owners, then we can assist them in that as well. Excuse me. But we also have recently been working with some of the other developers that are in the Near East area. One of the developers, Equity Development, they also have a lot of real estate, or they actually have a real estate company too, and they've actually purchased a lot of property in the Main Street area. Some of that property was property that we had looked at, but as a nonprofit, we just could not make the numbers make sense. But coming in there with a larger developer, a developer who has been in that community as a real estate company who understands that community, we're looking forward to working with them to see some changes take place. Also, again, on the residential and on the commercial side. So we're really, really, really excited about that.
Yeah, I think that, what's interesting, and I think that the work that you're doing and the partners that you're bringing on and working to do this, I mean, we're obviously focused on entrepreneurship and small business and things like that. That's the piece that we feel can be supportive in growing the community and different things of that nature. But, you've got to, get a base here, if you have housing and housing is either not plentiful or not affordable, you've got to get to where folks can have that piece handled, and then if they're looking to commercial space, it's the same kind of thing. I mean, there's a social component here that makes entrepreneurship able to happen.
Right. It's kind of like Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Yeah.
So if we can, help impact some of those basic needs, then those same individuals can come to can become business owners and receive the services that we receive. I've spoken with, and I know you and your team have as well, so many individuals that were or are business owners over the last couple of years, and just the challenges that they've dealt with, even with housing. A lot of the business owners, there were some programs that came out. I remember the county had a program, I think it was in 2020, it may have been in 2021, that dealt specifically with funding for housing for entrepreneurs, because that's part of our life. And so if that individual doesn't have their basic needs taken care of, they can't begin to focus on their business, or everything that's coming into their business is going directly to take care of their personal needs versus continuing to feed that business so that business can continue to grow and thrive. So yeah, my background, like yours, is more business economic development, but my background is also construction, and so this was a new venture, for lack of a better description, when I came to the Columbus Compact. But I was just very fortunate to not only have just the palette, again, the experience from our previous president and CEO, but also I've just had a lot of really great partners. And right now, today, I think it's just it's like a window, I think, of opportunity for not just, we've seen real estate prices just kind of go crazy over the last couple of years. But when we really talk about affordable housing with all of the various programs that are coming down, the federal dollars that are coming down, I believe this is just a window of opportunity for CDCs and other agencies that want to do more on the affordable housing and affordable commercial space to really be able to do that and be successful with it. So I'm excited.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when we talk about, we talk about the ecosystem, we talk about the small business ecosystem, things of that nature. But, obviously, we focus, on the small business and that piece. But when we talk about an ecosystem, it's the whole thing. It's not just, this particular piece. I mean, we've got to get the entire system working. And one thing that was interesting, in 2019, we did a program with the city of Columbus called Accelerate Columbus, and our effort was to try to, work with areas in the Linden area and to help folks that wanted to start businesses and things of that nature. And the thing that I think we found is that, we at the SBDC, we have a lot of people that come to us. I mean, we have big numbers and, a lot of folks we work with and things of that nature. But when we now say, okay, well, we're going to do that, but we're also going to be focused down in these particular areas and try to support individuals, what we find is that one, like, this hierarchy of needs is important. They've got to get the base piece put together to get to the next step to get where they can do it. But, they've never thought about being an entrepreneur. They never thought about being a business because, again, as they've grown up and they've done different things, I mean, the focus has always been on, having a job or getting a job, these types of things. They didn't have this kind of entrepreneurial background in their their parents or their grandparents and different things like that. So they never even thought about it. And, so those were a couple things that we really were trying to figure out how that we could make, a difference in that components of the ecosystem. I think that the work that, Columbus Empowerment is doing is really huge to get things moving so that, folks are comfortable doing these types of things.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, and that accelerator that you guys were doing in the Linden area, I think that was great because it shows that we can go in and assist people in one, like you said, they didn't really think about entrepreneurship. It just was not just a thought process, but individuals have skills. Everyone has skills. Everyone's not meant to be an entrepreneur. Yes, that's true. But everyone has a skill set. And so if that is something that you've not considered, just take a look at the things that you like to do. Look at your skill sets. Maybe it's not even the things you like to do. Maybe you're just a great organizer or a great administrator. Then look at some things and that you could possibly do as a business. Even if you guys were part of too when they did the I think the side hustle proposal that came out a couple of years. Even if it's something that you maintain your regular job and you just do this on the side, at least to begin with. And maybe that's all you want, is just something on the side, but you still want it structured as a business. Even if it's a side hustle, you still want it structured as a business. You still want to treat it as any other business. You're just not trying to grow it into a huge business, but you still want it to, if nothing else, you want it to stay alive. So you still
Yeah.
need to do the same things that you would do if you were going to grow your business exponentially. And so I like just the concept of educating people on, or just revealing opportunities that exist. And that transfer of skill is a huge one. That's something that hopefully when we do the reentry housing, we'll be able to develop some programs as well, some entrepreneurial programs that will just help them to explore various business opportunities in transferring those skills. And that's all, like you said, that's all part of the various things that are taking place within the ecosystem.
Right. You know, the interesting thing when you talk about the reentry, we did, this has been several years ago, we did some programs actually in some of the prisons for folks that were close to getting out within 6 months to a year of getting out. And, you know, we were talking about entrepreneurship, and there was an individual in there doing some training and doing some stuff like that. And I would go up kind of for the graduation and things of that nature. But it was interesting because they all kind of talked about what they were wanting to do and what they had been working on and stuff like that. You know, really good opportunities.
Yeah.
And, you know, they had researched it, you know, they kind of had a sense for what they wanted to do, and they had a passion around this piece. And, you know, if we can provide the mechanism for them to get that kind of reentry so that they could continue to have that passion.
Right.
There's opportunities there for them.
Right. Yeah, sounds like we need to have a conversation about some potential programming.
Right. Absolutely. So you have to be careful. So Bruce is on here, and he may go tell the other people on the staff that we're looking to do some new things. But,
we're not creating more work for anyone right now, Bruce. We know that everyone's inundated. Just a conversation.
That's right. So anyway, let's do this. I want to wrap up. Want to thank you. First of all, tell us where folks should go if they want a little bit more information on the Columbus Empowerment Corporation.
Okay. So our website is www.columbusempowerment.org. So that's Columbus spelled out, empowerment spelled out.org. And there's also a link there if you'd like to receive more information, if you'd like someone to contact you. There's a link there that you can click and give us a little bit more information, and we will get in touch with you. As well, our number is, I'm probably going to do something I probably shouldn't do. Let me see. I normally give out my cell number, but let me get the office number. Our number is 614-706-4736. And I will give my email. My email is Kim.Knights, Knights, at columbusempowerment.org. Again, that's Kim.Knights, Knights, at columbusempowerment.org.
Yeah, I usually give out Bruce's cell phone number. But
thanks, Bruce.
That usually works out. So that's great. You know, we talked about at the very beginning, you know, don't kind of go this alone, trying to figure out what you're doing and things of that nature. You know, and if you start to say, okay, well, they talk about the SBDC and they talked about Columbus Empowerment, and then, you know, Chaz mentioned the deck, and we talked about Rev 1 and different things. You know, it's easy to get confused in this kind of, as we like to call it, alphabet soup.
Right.
But, you know, we all kind of know who everybody is, though, too. So it's just a matter, I think, a lot of times of individuals just taking the step through the door.
Right.
And, you know, they come to you, you know us, you know all these other entities, same with us, same with the deck and different things of that nature. So don't be hesitant to reach out, to try to find support. And again, it may not be us.
Right.
We may send it to somebody else, but
Right.
you know, we know who's who, and you don't have to try to figure that out. So that's really important. So the last thing I wanted to ask you is, and this is what I ask all the time. So again, I don't know if you got a chance to prep this, but so for the small business owners that are watching this, are here, are going to watch it on YouTube, what's one thing that you would recommend they do? So let's assume this business is up and running, maybe it's earlier stage, but maybe it's that 6-month window somewhere in there. What's one thing that you would recommend they do today that would help them with their business?
I actually prepped all the way down to that question, and I left that question because I thought, let me think on that. But actually, what I would say you can do between now and midnight is contact the SBDC and find out who you can speak with to have a consult. If you're a startup, for your startup, if you're an existing business, even if you've already met with the SBDC, contact them and let them know where you're at today and find out what could be some of your next steps. So I know I put that back on you, Mike, but I thought that was like the best thing that they could do between now and I think it said within the next 24 hours or now and midnight, but I'm going to push it up from that. I will say between now and let's say the close of business today, because all you need to do is go online. And Bruce, I would appreciate if you would put in the chat the website that they can go to, and let's get scheduled a consultation with an advisor and find out what your next step should be for where you're at today.
Yeah, well, thank you, Lon. I appreciate that. It is SBDC Columbus, 2 C's together, SBDCColumbus.com is the website. We have a lot of information on there. And, feel free to reach out to us because, again, I think we have a lot of stuff early on. And we do have a lot of folks that, like you mentioned earlier, that maybe they got started and now they want to kind of, let's take a stop and jump all the way back, maybe even to the base and the BizStart programs that we have that allow them to put some of those pieces in place that they may have missed, that will make their business operate better and more successfully. So again, thank you for that. Chaz, I want to thank you and the Dublin Entrepreneurial Center, the DEC, for everything that you guys have done. Also, to mention, the next Small Business Breakthroughs is August 25th. And even though Chaz has been here pretty much all the sessions, Chaz will be the guest for the entire time. So we're going to talk about the DEC a little bit, but he's also got some other really cool stuff going in the entrepreneur space that I think can be beneficial for folks. So don't miss that. It's going to be a great session. Go to the website to register to get on live so you can ask some questions, or just check it out on YouTube. That'll work. But again, that's August 25th, and Chaz Frutel from the Dublin Entrepreneurial Center will be the guest. So thank you guys, and we really appreciate it. Kim, appreciate your time and your comments. Again, like I said, we've known each other for a long time. We've worked with each other for a long time, and I have a lot of confidence in everything you're doing, and I'm really excited about the stuff that the Columbus Empowerment Corporation is doing, because I think it's going to make a huge difference in the community to continue to build out entrepreneurship, just build out what we need to have to what they say, live, thrive, and survive here, right? So yes. So again, thank you guys. Thank everybody who's here today. We really appreciate it, and we look forward to seeing you next time on Small Business Breakthroughs. Thank you.
Take care.